for the people. Oh shoot! Now I'm just not saying it did work. Good Lord, I'm so silly. I just didn't give it a chance, man. I wasn't very patient.
Well, that happens nowadays, you know. It's all good though.
All right, it's on Emmanuel's page. If you got that, you can share it out to your folks. Let's see. Anyway, hey, good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
All right, man. We're gonna give a few seconds for people to join to get on. You like my shirt?
I love it. I love it. You know, I had to go with the old alumni. You know?
All right. Yeah. We'll get going here. We don't want to waste too much time. We getting people on. We'll give another minute for people to join. Then we'll do our intros and dive in. Sorry, folks. I was having some technical issues, mainly on the user side, as I was messing up things, but we're gonna get going here in a second as we just talk about the crucial and critical topic of racism in America, and kind of trying to figure out how we got in this mess we in.
I had to go with the old alumni.
There we go. All right. So, man, we got about a few people on. So, all right, thanks, Derwin. I've been my shirt game been stepping up, man. So, you know, finally, man, this shirt company, this is from melanin.com, man. They shirt quality is getting at a high level, man. They used to be them not so great shirts, but that shirt quality is moving on up. So I'm happy about it. But anyway, so let's go ahead, man, and do some intros. And you being my guest, go ahead and get us started, brother. Tell the people who you are.
Man, what's up, man? I am Lakunta Farmer. I just happen to be honored to be a great friend of Dania Thompson here. I appreciate you having me on. I appreciate the thought process behind this, and I can't wait to get started and get moving, man.
Good deal, man. I am Dania Thompson, pastor of Emmanuel Baptist Church. Also, I have been black all my life. I ain't just become black the other day, but I also think I have a unique space after working in corporate America for 20 plus years. And in every stop I've been at, I've been the only black on my team, almost the only black in the company. And what the things I've learned and had to glean and really pastoring a predominantly black church that is in a predominantly black area, and then working in a predominantly white place, being in a predominantly white area, I get to see a perspective from multiple worlds. And, you know, I do think that my vision to see reactions of current environment on all sides is pretty interesting. So I just kind of want to talk about it, man. We'll start with just talking about some of the things that are going on nationally in terms of the nation at unrest. So, Lakunta, just tell us what's been going on, man, in the world.
Well, you know, all of a sudden, you know, black people have been criminalized by the police force, you know. And,
I'm sure that's new.
I know it's a natural new phenomenon, you know, going on, but most recently, with the deaths of Breonna Taylor, that information just got out in May, with the death of George Floyd by the police as well. Both of those by the police. The David McAtee shootings here in Louisville, and Breonna was in Louisville. and many other little stories I'm hearing about. Well, not little stories, big stories I'm hearing about around the nation about police brutality and the way we're being treated as humans. It took us a while to just become 3/5 of a man. Now, as we're fully a human, we're still getting attacked after all these years, after over 200 years of what's going on. So the nation is a virtual hotbed right now. The cities, this is the first time in history that literally every state in the union had a protest about the same thing. And I'm sure people are tired. I'm tired of hearing about it, tired of seeing it, on both sides of it, but that's what's going on right now. And we can't avoid it. You have to talk about it. Those uncomfortable conversations, we're in them. So that's why me and you are here today, so we can continue to carry this conversation on.
Yeah, and I've been flooded, and I'm not sure why this particular set of situations has hit the nation the way it has, but it's definitely a different feeling amongst both Black and whites. The Arbery thing I thought was ridiculous, but it was so paralleled with the young man down in Florida with George Zimmerman.
Tamar
Martin. They were so paralleled that I felt like the national response was going to be pretty much the same. A lot of people felt like people patrolling their neighborhood was a common thing to do and a very American thing to do. And they think it's one of those things where they had good intentions that ended badly. Right. What we see when we see those situations is every ordinary citizens that criminalize a person because of the way they looked and felt compelled to action, even illegal action, for what they felt was a noble cause. But the core of it is seeing a Black face and pronouncing not only criminal intent, but also trying them in their mind, convicting them in their mind, and then the action, executing them with their actions is really, really problematic. But the world didn't really seem to overflow with the situation with Ahmaud Arbery. And really, we know in Louisville that the world really didn't pay attention when Breonna Taylor got shot.
No, not at all.
It just kind of, it was a blip on the radar. Everybody in Louisville had been working over and over about the situation, but it really didn't get national attention. But it seemed like that George Floyd hit differently for a lot of people. And the carelessness that we've always felt seemed to hit nationally, and it did hit differently. And I don't know about you, but I've been flooded with phone calls, text messages from my white brothers and sisters crying out to me on what they can do and how hurt they are by the situation. And don't get me wrong, man, the George Floyd thing hurt my heart. I watched the video once. I vowed I would never watch it again. I will never watch it again. It was too problematic for me. The audio of it haunted me for days. I was in full depression. I was both angry and hurt and saddened. I wanted to hug my kids and shelter them from the world at the same time. All these emotions that I was going through. And then I felt like I was getting reached out to by, my white brothers and sisters. And I appreciated them doing it, but I felt like I ended up consoling them on something that was very common to me.
Right. And I agree. It's the same way with me, man. And I love my white brothers and sisters just like anybody else would, but it was tough. It was tough to try to make sure I was good. Like you, I was in a state of depression. I think I was torn apart. Like, to watch somebody get pretty much choked out with a knee, that's almost, what's that movie? Well, my man put his mouth on the curb and stomped on the curb.
I know what you're talking about. I can't even think of the movie.
I can't either, but it kind of brought me back to that moment of how I felt at that moment. And that was watching TV. That was just a movie that wasn't real, but I'm watching a real life situation happen for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. It kind of took me out of the game as well. And I'm trying to console myself. I'm trying to console my wife. I'm trying to make sure we're good. But now I got to try to console other people that I really don't understand why they don't understand. This is something that happens on a regular basis. The only difference in this one, you got to watch it for 8 minutes and 46 seconds.
Yeah. Normally, that movie was American History X. That's what the movie was.
Yeah, American History X. And that was like a 2-minute, maybe normally it's like a 2-minute video. You see almost like the Ahmaud Arbery. You see them running. It was all in 1 minute and 35 seconds that you got to view this, but we got to view this from almost the beginning to almost the end. And the only thing that we didn't see was the other 3 officers holding him down from the other side. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the confused other officer looking in the camera like, what am I supposed to do?
Right.
The anger that we feel is the anger that everybody should feel all the time when it's dealing with this.
Yeah, but before we go on to the meat of what we're going to talk about today, let's kind of address some myths. First off, people have asked me that it seems like the Black community is anti-police. So let's start with that. Let's debunk that myth first off, and just kind of unpack this. What is the problem? What issues do the quote unquote Black community have with the police, quote unquote?
Trust. At the end of the day, it's trust. Like literally, I remember when I was a young kid running through the West End of Louisville, like we had some police officers that would stop and talk to us and, try to give us some positive ways to go. But we had them other officers that gave us a hard way to go, getting caught in alleys, having us sitting on the curbs, thinking we're doing wrong. And, we're just some little kids chilling on our bikes, the trust becomes a factor, and for so many years, you can go back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, whatever you want. You can choose a year. You can see some picture or some image of a police officer doing something to somebody Black, and after a while, you get fed up. You get to the point where I don't trust this dude. I don't know what he's about. If I'm driving my car and I see a police officer behind me, I shouldn't have to worry that, he might pull me over for no reason.
Yeah.
For
me, I agree with you. Trust. I've been pastoring nearly 15 years in West Louisville. The 2nd division of LMPD is the division that covers the Shawnee neighborhood, our neighborhood. I've had a working relationship with the 2nd division every year that I've been a part of Emmanuel. And my issue is really not with individual officers, because most of the officers that I've come in contact with are good, solid people, solid dudes, solid women, solid individuals. My issue is that it takes on this kind of frat boy mentality that even when someone's out of line and they're out of line, the unwillingness to check it, to correct it, to alter it, it ends up being groupthink. And when one in the group thinks poorly, then the ones who think better refuse to correct. And that's a fundamental problem for me. That's a problem. And it was me and you as football coaches, how powerful it is when you have one negative voice on the team. It almost becomes more advantageous to get him off the team, because that mentality ends up piercing and permeating everybody. And my worry is that, I believe we got good officers, but if the good officers refuse to check the bad ones, then you ain't got nothing but bad officers.
Right.
And that's a problem.
And you're right. What do we call that? We call it a cancer on the team. And if that cancer spreads, you're going to destroy the whole team. You can have cancerous coaches as well. Just like you said, we can have cancerous police officers. If we're standing around seeing a crime happen or seeing something happen and we don't do anything about it, that's gang mentality to me. That's the thought process of that's a gang. So let me watch him stomp him out and then maybe later say something to him about it. I just don't want to do it right now. That is the biggest problem we have with a lot of these officers.
Yeah, and so I want what I want, what we demand from everybody. I want accountability. If you do wrong, accept responsibility for it, be punished for it, and move on. And that other people hold each other accountable. So that's the first myth I wanted to debunk. The second one that I wanted to address, and we'll just take about 2 minutes to address this is I keep getting asked, and I only get asked this question by white brothers and sisters. Why is there no outrage in the Black community about Black on Black crime? Why is it only about police violence? And why is there no outrage in the Black community about Black on Black crime?
So I feel like if you're worried about Black on Black crime, that's fine. There's white on white crime too. But the people that are supposed to be sworn to protect us, the people that are supposed to do things to help us in the community and better us and better our living situations are the ones killing us, right? That is the biggest issue that's going on.
And not I think people punished for it. And not being punished.
Exactly. So we if a Black on Black crime happens, and I said this the other day, if a crime happens that's Black on Black, there's no thought process on let's wait and see if it actually happened. I'm going to jail right now if you think I did it, and I stay there until my arraignment. And then even after my arraignment, if my bail is not presented, I get to stay there till my trial. And if my trial gets pushed back, I'm there till then. And if that happens, you let me go, you put me on house arrest, I can't leave my house. So guess what? I'm stuck.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
But before this is all said and done, in the 8 or 9 sessions we do this together, one of the things we will address is how if you don't have money in America, you can commit the same crime as somebody with money, and your chances of going to jail or prison for the same crime is like tripled. Somebody's giving some stats in the comments saying Black on Black crime 91%, white on white crime 83%. The point is that criminals in America, and even some people who don't commit crimes, when they commit crimes, they go to jail, they go to prison, they get in trouble. The problem is when sworn officers of the state, institutions that are set to protect communities, to monitor criminals, when those forces are abnormally pushed against a group of people that they've been sworn to protect, that's a problem. Black people are 4 times more likely to be killed by the police than their white counterparts. 4 times. I mean, like that's crazy. My brother told me a stat that it's like 1 in 1,000 yearly. So 1 in 1,000 chance that a black male be assaulted by an officer. I have a greater chance of being assaulted by an officer than I do winning over $5,000 on a scratch off. Right. And it's funny you said that too. I saw a stat the other day that said you could talk to 2 in 5 African-American men, and they probably have a story about being mistreated by the police. Right. You know what I mean? And that in itself is disappointing and hurtful. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we look forward to, not looking forward to. Yeah. That makes sense? Yeah. You know I pray that I don't have a story to tell, but at 42, I already have 3. Right. Exactly. I have 3 that were really bad situations, and I have a few pullovers. I was like, what they put me over for? Right. But hey, but the reason you don't tell those stories because it becomes so normal. Right. Telling the story seems silly or a waste of time. Some people would describe that as a life-changing event. I would describe it as Tuesday. Right. Exactly, man. And the last time I got pulled over, I had all my kids in the car. I'm headed to my mom's house. I'm in the West. I'm just driving down River Park. My man pulls me over and says, "Your tail light's out." I looked. I said, "It is 4:00 in the evening. You just got behind me. How's my tail light out?" He's like, "Well, can I look in the car?" I put all the windows down so he could see every child that was in that car and the one that wasn't mine. So he understood at that point. And then I looked to the side. There's another officer rolling up on my son's side. I'm like, wait a minute. I said, "Sir, I ain't do nothing wrong. I don't know what's going on. I don't know who you looking for, but it ain't me by any means. It's not." And he, just because I still to this day, I think because he saw my youngest daughter in her car seat, and she was a baby at the time,
I believe that is the reason why we got to go so easily.
Yeah.
With an apology.
Without your kids, huh?
Right. With an apology.
Well, that was a rarity. It's like
Right.
seeing a unicorn in the West End.
Exactly.
All right, man. So let's transition, man.
Right.
You know, that kind of what we want to do, and let me just set the stage for those of you who are watching, those of you who watch later. What we're trying to do is do a little bit of articulating true messages, and we're going to try to be as truthful as possible. If y'all feel like we full of it, we ain't kicking truth, you know, say it in the comments, and
Right.
we'll try our best to correct it. But we're going to speak the truth that we know. You know, we do feel that part of the problem with the situations with racism in America is that it's really not taught. It's one of those really, really bad things that no one really wants to discuss. And if you bring up some racist ideal or racist action or things that adversely affect a color group, the bringing up of the pain is seen as race baiting or racist itself. And I just kind of want to talk about, just for the beginning, what is prejudice? What is racism? What is oppression? Some of these terms that we talk about all the time, and especially ones that really end up getting our white brothers and sisters really fired up when you start talking about privilege, white privilege, and all these kind of things. Boy, I mean, it'll get people's hair on fire. And so we're going to try to explain some of those things at the onset, and just kind of trying to define these things. I'll start with prejudice. And then I'll let you grab hold of the racism.
Gotcha.
So
we'll do.
The word prejudice literally means it is an opinion that is formed about a group of people that's not based on any fact. It's based on a factor just that you have prejudged based by what you see. For instance, if I walk into a room and I see a guy 6'10", the first thing that I'm going to say is not, hey, how you doing? Hey, are you a math scholar? My first thought is going to prejudge him because he's 6'10". Most likely he what?
Plays basketball.
He plays basketball. I have prejudged him based on what I see. Well, prejudice when it comes to the race constructs is when you have ascribed an action, a feeling, or a thought process by a group of people based on no factual evidence. There was, and those prejudice end up getting pushed out there. And here's where the graduation comes. When you have a prejudice, which we all have, I prejudge based on what I see. When you have a prejudice that you refuse to change, even when you have factual evidence otherwise, that's when that prejudice becomes racism.
Right.
So now you got it. I'm a volley to you on racism, and let's talk about this racism.
So, with prejudice being the lead into racism, you know, racism can be defined as a way that creates or produces structures of domination based on your skin color, right? So, if in fact, for example, because I'm black, I can't get equal health care than somebody that's of a different color, that's racism, right? If I'm trying to get a job from some Fortune 500 company and I got better credentials than maybe my white brother, and he gets the job because he's the white brother, that is racism. You know, all these things that are unjust, and it reflects unjust mentality that you just your race, your background, your ethnicity is better than somebody else's. That is a form of race. That is racism. You know, at the end of the day, that's what it is.
Well, I want to add a word to, you know, prejudice, racism. I want to add a word, and that's oppression.
Right.
And I want to read this definition. Oppression is the systematic subjugation of one social group by the more powerful social group for the social, economic, and political benefit of the more powerful social group. So the social group in power uses a systematic pushing down of another social group for the purposes of social, economic, and political benefit. Oppression is where power and prejudice use racism to control.
Right. Woo. You hit something right there, man. I know a lot of people just wipe their forehead with that sweat, but you know, and that brings in, and that you said that brings in systematic racism as well. And there's consequences to systematic racism. You know what I'm saying? Like, so we talk about racist behaviors and racist beliefs. They could be subconscious, they could be semi-conscious, they could be all of these things, but it's always the fuel of inequalities of race that plague a society. And right now, we're dealing with a huge plague right now that's getting some backlash. You know what I mean?
Right.
We talk about what is disproportionate. Like, for instance, disproportionate would be policing. It would be the arrest and incarceration of black men and boys versus white men and boys. Right. You know what I mean? Like, that is a systematic racism that is brought on by the oppressor, that is brought on by, you know, just your racist beliefs and behaviors. And those things get stuck in some people's head, in our white brothers and sisters' heads, that we all get prejudged from prejudice. Yeah. So if I'm a black man, I stand about 5'11", I'm 240 pounds. You know, I might be a little bit muscular. I don't know.
We're not gonna have to give our weight on this pod. Though.
Well, you don't have to. I'm pretty proud of where I have come to. But you know, I intimidate people. Even if I come in with a smile on my face, like he looked like he about to do something to somebody real quick, you know what I mean? Right. And that's prejudice, you know, keeping me from trying to be equal to you. That's racist, right? You know, and not having the protection when I walk into these places, that's systematic racism.
Yes, and so I got a story kind of on that same vein. I was at work. Now, keep in mind that I was not involved in this conversation I'm about to tell you about. I was actually walking by. This guy at work who's a friend of mine. He's telling a story about a situation where he and his family were in a car, and a guy cut him off in traffic. And after he cut him off, he gave him the #1 sign. He flipped him the bird. All right. Mm-hmm. So the guy's in the car. The guy cut him off and gave him the what up. And he said he was so mad, but he had his family in the car. He just explained to his family, hey, you know, sometimes there are ignorant people in the world. And so I was walking by as he's telling this story. I was on my way to the break room to get some water. As I was walking by, he was like, man, I was so mad, I just kept driving. And then all of a sudden he said, I bet if Damien were me, he would have got out of the car and beat that guy's butt. And I said, because in your 15 years of knowing me, you know how I just walk up and beat people up.
I'm so bad.
All the fights you've seen Damien in, clearly I would have handled that situation less civilized than you. And we work at the same place. Like why he thought no experience he had with me said that I just walk up and I ain't had a fight since I was probably 17. You know what I'm saying? I don't fight. I'm 40 years old, man. I don't fight no more, man.
Right.
I work in a Fortune 500 company. I ain't out here fighting in these streets.
What?
Right. But it's the notion that in his mind, the responses of people that I'm not aware of, that I have ascribed an attitude, an over aggressive attitude to a color. That your color means that you're overly aggressive, difficult to deal with, more of a threat, more willing to respond in an irrational manner. I don't want to say anything to get you upset. And so tonally, it's a mindset that my prejudice, based on the construct of racism, says that I see you in a certain way, and putting on a badge, black or white, does not change that ideal.
Right. Right. And that's the scary thing, you know, and that's the scary thing to even have to live with and think about. You know, you have to, and I got two almost adult young men that live in my house that eat up all my food and
right.
about as big as me, you know, and I worry, like they're at work right now, and I literally worry about how they're going to be treated and what's going to happen when they get out there. You know, they shouldn't have to worry about that. You know, and my oldest son, you know, is literally driving for his company right now, dropping off the food. You know, and I worry about him knocking on doors. I worry about him, you know, ringing the doorbell and trying to get out of the way. So, you know, you get your social distance on. But like, who's to say they gonna be like want that black dude to deliver? And he's not a small dude. So that black dude to deliver this food, and he might get looked at as a threat.
Right.
You know what I mean? And taking it back to what you said too about the job thing, like teachers, administrators like get into that too. You know, there's a lot of times that our kids are maybe hard to deal with. Well, who do you think they send them to? Right. Well, maybe you need to talk to him. And maybe, and a lot of times I don't mind that. But in other aspects, I'm like, did you give this kid a chance? Did you get to know this kid enough to understand what he might be going through? You know, why is he so angry? Well, why do I have to find out why he's angry? Why can't you find out what's angry? Why do I have to find out why he's angry and then come report back to you why he's angry? You know what I mean? Right. Like there's a lot of misthought when it comes to those things in teaching and at your job. Like we might look aggressive, but a lot of us aren't.
Right. I mean, everybody's aggressive when they gotta be. You know, I mean, think about how often we talk about mama bear. You know, mother bears are not normally aggressive, but if you mess with their baby, they're gonna knock your head off. I ain't an aggressive person, you know, but if it warrants difficulty, then I got to do what I got to do. But most of my life and most of your life, most of our life doesn't warrant that, right? So it's kind of one of those things that those preconceived notions end up fueling people's actions and treatment of one another. And, you know, the scariest point I've ever had in my life, this happened about 18 months ago. It was storming and we were in the bed. It was about 2 a.m. and our alarm started going off. And when we looked at the meter, it said that our basement door was open. Okay, so I was like, all right. So they called and I said, yeah, send the police out. I'm not sure what's going on. So I went to each girl's room, all over in the bed, still sleeping. So I'm like, okay, I need to go check it out. Now, while I'm preparing to go check it out, I grabbed the appropriate weaponry.
And, you grabbed the broom. You grabbed your broom.
Right. Now I had a you know them sticks where the muscle sticks that you roll out your muscles.
Yeah.
I had a muscle stick. I'm about to bat something. So I'm walking down, and I'm walking to the basement. I open the basement door. As I open the basement door, at the bottom of my steps is an officer with his light and his gun pointed up.
Wow.
And I just stopped and he said, Mr. Thompson? I was like, yeah, I'm Mr. Thompson. And he puts his gun down and he says, I walked up and he came on the scene and he walked around my fence, saw the door open and he came in.
Right.
So he gets a call that there's a burglar alarm going on. He walks up, my basement door open, and then he sees this 6'1", plenty pounds, size elastic coming down the steps. And thankfully, the officer didn't respond based on a prejudgment. He had already confirmed that he's called there for a purpose, right? Everything the evidence said was that it's a hostile situation. He already had his gun out. Thanks be to God. I don't know if it was my Superman PJs that caused him to say I was non-threatening or what. But I've never been so afraid in my life. I was afraid because I did nothing abnormal. There was the same behavior that Breonna Taylor's boyfriend did that got her killed.
Right.
You hear a noise, a door is open in your home, you respond. It is your legal right to do to protect your turf.
Defend your house.
And it ended her life.
Right.
And those differing situations and many like that the frustration is I want us to stop calling it white privilege. I want to say black people do not get the benefit of the doubt.
Right. Okay. With that.
We don't get the benefit of innocent until proven guilty. We are seen as guilty until you're convinced we're not.
Right.
Even after we dead.
Exactly. Like, we can't even defend ourselves no more. But
right.
You know, they'll find. I mean, they'll find any reason. Like, okay, so I'm watching the George Floyd thing, right? And my close friend of mine, I played football with him. He played football with George Floyd, and he actually spoke at the funeral. I'm reading the comments. And this man's talking about love, talking about how love got to bring us back together, how George loved everybody. He loved being who he was, and he protected the team at different times and protected people in the neighborhood. You know, and I'm watching the comments, people talking about how did a meth head and he's got fentanyl all in his blood. Like, okay, he had crimes like nobody else had crimes. Nobody else had issues. Nobody else had mental issues. Like, come on, man. Like, there's so many people with mental issues out here, but you're condemning him because you don't want him to be the martyr because he's black and he died in the hands of the officers. And I just don't get it. Like, and I don't think they get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, I even think about that. Even in the worst situations, blacks aren't even allowed to be mentally ill.
Right, we talked about that the other
day. It just never comes up. You know, me and you talked about the other night when I was watching the unfolding of the Las Vegas shooter. He went up to that Las Vegas hotel room and shot up the country concert. And he had bags upon bags of ammo. He was just in the window, just going Call of Duty, right? Yeah. They were unsure exactly what was going on, but when I was watching the coverage, they every time they went to commercial, they was like, you know, a horrible scene. Clearly, some sick individual is in the hotel shooting at people. It's a trap, and I thought about that. Like, that automatically says that your actions are not criminal. Your actions are mentally unstable.
Right. Right.
And I don't think I've ever heard of a case where black people are assumed to be mentally unstable. And even in those cases where they have proven that they are mentally unstable, they on medication, and in cases where they actually have a caseworker and they had 7 counties, they end up getting killed. The benefit of doubt doesn't happen. Think about the special needs young man that got shot when he was laying on the ground.
Right, with his hands up.
Right. And just recently, I want to say right outside of Tallahassee, I think this was last week. It was in Panama City. A man who was autistic got shot because he didn't respond to the officers' heating, and he didn't have a weapon, but he didn't respond appropriately. And I know I have so many friends who have kids with special needs. One of our closest friends has a young man that Jamie took care of. He is a tremendous young man, but he is not as verbally responsive as one would hope. But he's 6'2".
Right.
Right. And I think about that all the time, and I fear that someone who has a prejudgment of his size, his stature, and his lack of communication in an appropriate manner as justification to take his life. It hurts me and it pains me. And I fear that collectively, when you have the combination of an economic depressed community mixed with family structure issues, mixed with PTSD from everything they've seen in these streets, how can you not lose your mind?
Oh, don't forget to sprinkle in COVID-19.
Right. COVID sprinkled in there, and no health care, and
right.
I mean, all that stuff, man. It's just it just bubbles over and boils over. So we talked about this oppression, man. And I was reading something today that I want to throw at you about this oppressive nature.
Okay.
It talks about the 4 areas or the 4 steps, the conditions about oppression. The oppressing group has the power to define reality for themselves and others. That's one. Then the target group takes in and internalize the negative message about themselves and end up cooperating with the oppressors, thinking and acting like them. Step three is genocide, harassment, and discrimination are systematic and institutionalized so that individuals are not necessary to keep it going, that it's a structure, just like with racism. Racism is a construct. And the final thing, members of both the oppressing group and the target group are socialized to play their roles as normal and correct. Not only does the prejudice and the oppression, is it wrong, but it's wrong and it has been painted as right, and saying something about the wrong, we are deemed problematic. I get more pushback by saying there's something wrong rather than just stepping and fetching and taking it.
Exactly. It's funny you said it. My wife was telling me a story last night about one of her friends that, you know, put a status on Facebook about, you know, the Breonna Taylor's incident report that came out yesterday that was virtually blank. You know, somebody gets shot 9 times, but there's no injuries. There's no forced entry, but they went in with a battering ram. But he's talking about those things, and people attacked him for, you know, in the comments for speaking out on that. Like, we have conditioned a lot of people have conditioned themselves to hear a certain thing, believe a certain thing, and even if they hear the truth about that thing, they're going to stay in that lane.
Right.
And unfortunately, a lot of them are, you know, I don't know, they might have some mental issues.
Right. And there's a place to that. You know, I do believe that a lot of people fight back on that notion that they're not racist. And
yes,
you know, I think the conversation ends up collapse when you say, man, now that's racist. And they're like, oh, don't call it racist. It might be a little wrong, but don't call it racist. And so I do think that it needs to be taught. And let's talk about that racism is a system. It is a system of oppression that is targeted towards one group. Racism can exist even when the personalities are not exhibiting currently racist actions or even hatred in their heart at that moment. Like, you can benefit from racism and you can be the benefactor of racism and not have ill will towards the ones that you're oppressing at the time.
Right. But you know, but that goes back in history though. Like, that all starts, you know, the mentality starts. So after slavery ended, okay, so now the black people got this mentality where we've been oppressed for so long. They was too scared to do a lot of things because they still felt oppressed in 1866 and 1867. So in 1868, here come the black codes. So all these cities put in these black codes to kind of shut everybody down again. So let me stay in my place. Let me stay in my place because I don't need to be anywhere else. I need to be in my place. So I need to keep my family alive. After that kind of got debunked, here comes Jim Crow. Right. Yeah. Oh, wait. Let me backtrack. The induction of the Ku Klux Klan.
Man.
So before anybody else, your doctors, your lawyers, your police, your everybody else was wearing these masks and hoods, and let's still instill this fear to keep them in their place. Right.
So and along with the Ku Klux Klan, you have also the White League, which was Ku Klux Klan, who didn't wear masks. They didn't care that you knew. They were the enforcer of these black codes. Let's talk about these black codes just for a second, because I truly believe that many people don't even know that there were laws put on the books after slavery that before Jim Crow that were called black codes, talking about the ways and the posture that black people should function towards white people. So give us a couple of those if you don't mind.
Okay, so black codes was pretty much the legal system that stacked. So if I had an issue with If I had an issue with him, he did me wrong, I want to take him to court. I can't take him to court because he's white, right?
Right.
So that's part of the black codes. Being put in camps so you can be stuck, you go to jail, you get put in camps, so you still have to give this free labor, you know what I mean?
Right.
And throughout the state, it was, you still had indentured servitude.
Yeah.
You didn't have voting rights. Your voting rights were still taken away. They control where you live. This is the early stages of redlining, right? They control how you travel, how many people you travel with. They can seize your children. If you did something wrong, you owe somebody some money, they can seize your children for labor purposes. These black codes were just strict and local, and it was a legal system that was what was it called? It was been by ex-Confederate soldiers.
Yeah.
Once they lost, what was they gonna do? They back in the state in a nation that didn't approve of what they were doing. So now, let's make Admiral Jones, Abernathy, Abernathy. let's let him be the police. Okay, let's let this other guy be the judge. And now it's difficult to win court cases. It's difficult to even get a court case. Anything that's legal. They worked in conjunction with a lot of things. Incarcerated prisoners were treated as enslaved people, and and it didn't change. Mm-hmm. It didn't change at all. And all this grueling work and all this free labor. So if I'm a slave, I'm still out here picking cotton.
Right.
If I'm a slave, I'm still out here building houses and doing all these things. That's how some of these capitals were built down in the South.
Not with so. This system. I do think that a lot of times people see racism as regional. You know what I mean? Like every time, especially in Kentucky, I've been in Kentucky 20 years. When I tell somebody I'm from Mississippi, they always say, "Ooh," and they're like, "Boy, show is racist down there." And I'd be like, I hope you don't think that I've been treated stellarly in Kentucky. I hope that you don't think it's just amazeballs here in Kentucky, because it's kind of an image that the Civil War was, these Northerners who love Black people against these Southerners who wanted to oppress Black people. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. The truth of the matter is the Civil War, slavery was the central issue, but it was really about the control and how that control is translated and how the money is distributed. And the Southerners who had more slaves than the Northerners wanted to add representation based on the amount of slaves that they had. And basically it would have ended up tilting their votes in Congress and all that kind of stuff. So let's just be clear, from the foundation of America, from the day America was founded, there was not a single person of color that was thought about positively in that founding document. There was not a single person of color that was in the mindset. When they say we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, you ain't the man they talking about. No man of color is in there. Nope. Not a single one. Hold on, you breaking up. I can't hear you.
Not at all. Not at all. And at all, and it wasn't even thought about at the time, simply because it's funny. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Right. So it's funny you say that, because I taught my students this before we went on this. You have the Americans that were crying for freedom. They were yelling at England, "We need our freedom! We need our freedom!" But the enslaved people were crying the same thing. "We need our freedom. We need our freedom." And them thinking, "Hey, we need to go help these people out to get their freedom from this situation." They thought they were going to gain freedom as well, right? All that freedom got put on the back burner. Once America gained their freedom, and the forefathers sat down and start writing this Constitution, they didn't write it for us because we were still just property. We were still just a part of a dollar, a part of an economic come up.
Yeah.
You know, we weren't part of that, and you're absolutely correct. And I think you said the other day, how many amendments did we get to before they started actually talking to us?
It was 12 other amendments to the founding document before they said, you know what, we might need to put one up in here for black folks.
89 years, Coach. 89 years before we got talked about.
And so, you know, that's why it's really important to understand that North, South, East, or West, from George Washington, inclusive of Abraham Lincoln, all of them had a mindset to oppress a group of people. They were not, the Emancipation Proclamation is not about freedom. It was about control. And it is clear over the years that as horrible as slavery was, as painful of a practice as it was, it ends up paling in comparison to the things that happened after slavery, to oppress, to systematically kill, to take the rights from, to keep away from financial freedom, land ownership, voting rights. Like it's almost like, you know, even to this day, it is 2020. Even to this day, when you start, I hate teaching about the history, because when I start thinking about the history, it's really difficult to understand why on a daily basis we don't just go up to white people and just smack the crap out of them. Because of so many years and years and years of oppression. Like if we did that, you like, you know what, hey man, I deserve that. I deserve that. But the truth is that over the years, it's been taught to us that we're benevolent people, we're forgiving people, and praise God for that. Otherwise, it would be total anarchy all the time.
Right, exactly. Shoot, my track coach from K-State said anything south of the Canadian border is the South.
Yeah, right, no doubt. Any soil in America is unrighteous soil and has not been advantageous to people of color at all. So,
let's not get into the religious part of it yet. Now we got a ways to go.
I'm on my church page, so let's just leave that alone. But I will say this: one part of the Black code that's still to this day kind of an inherent thought is about how Black people should address white people, and you know, addressing them as sir and speaking respectfully. You know, I'm amazed at the number of cop to Black person interactions that end violently because they say, well, he disrespected an officer. I don't know why, you know, these officers are so mentally fragile and delicate that saying a loud word to them or not speaking softly or saying a curse word results in an aggressive act. But I do think that the history of these Black codes, where it was against the law for you not to call a white person sir, it was against the law, even if you were standing in line first, for you to have to get out of line to let your white counterpart get in front of you to give preference to another race. And that over years, and this is the trick of oppression, the dominant or the power group puts in systems in place, creating a reality for the power group that adversely affects the offended group. And the offended group adopts and accepts it as truth and right. And now they function like that's the reality that's normal.
Right. Exactly. And it's crazy, you know. And even I know when I came up, you're supposed to respect your parents, and you know, I've never said anything less than no sir, no ma'am to my parents.
Right.
But you know, and they always taught you talk to all adults that way, right? So that was just a way we learn respect too. But like you said, these officers, they're not my parents. Why do I have to say yes sir, no sir? You the same as me, and some of y'all are younger than me, and you know what I mean. You should be saying yes sir, no sir to me. But at the end of the day, you know, going back to what you said a little bit earlier in that, like you are trained. These officers are supposed to be trained, right? I know when I did a little stint in the military, I did, like, you woke up with somebody screaming at you. saying all types of craziness to you, right? You woke up with all of that in your face, and you stay in basic training for months, right? And then when you get out of basic training, you go to some other training, right? I think Colin Kaepernick even kind of alluded to this a long time ago. He said it's crazy how a police officer can get a job, get on the force, have only 3 to 6 months of training, and then you give him a gun to go out into these streets and supposedly protect me. Come on, bro. Like, at the end of the day, you're giving a lot of insecure, and there's your answer. There's a lot of insecure human beings that decided, well, maybe if I get this badge, I'm going to get some respect.
Yeah, they're going to respect me.
Maybe if I put this uniform on, I'm going to get some respect.
Yeah.
And,
my buddy said, my buddy said, and this, of course, is not all officers, but these are a bunch of, you didn't pick me on the football team. Last pick, couldn't get the girl. You took my girl to prom. Guys who are saying they didn't respect me as a person, but they will respect this badge and this gun. And that is problematic, man. I don't really know all the details of the training, but I do know that if they don't take sufficient time to train mental stability in that office, because it's a tough job. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a tough job, but you can't do it and be fragile.
No,
you got to thick skin, man.
And you know what? I tell teachers the same thing, and any educator. If you're in a building with a bunch of kids, and especially kids nowadays, they're gonna try you, and they're gonna try the respect factor. Coaches too, they're gonna try you. At the end of the day, if you don't know how to be tough enough to handle those things and come back with a response that keeps and continues to protect you and protect everything you got,
right?
I can have a kid swing on me. My first thought process is I need to protect myself. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna say I need to continue with my job so my kids can eat. You know what I mean? So there's right and wrong ways to handle everything. You can't control everybody's response, true enough, but you can kind of control the narrative of the situation that you're in at the moment.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. I thought about this, about Black people aren't given the benefit of the doubt. And I think that so much, my boss came on a conference call today, and it wasn't even the topic. And the first thing my boss said was, if another person tells me about my white privilege, I might slap him in the face. I mean, just out of the blue. That was the first thing he said on the call. And I was thinking, okay. And I understand why that would be problematic. And in my life, I grew up, my parents, when I was born, we lived in a trailer park. And we went through that. My mom and dad, they both worked 2 jobs, putting the other one in school to get their master's degree, and they just kept working until eventually my mom was a counselor, my dad was a principal. But if someone said, "Oh, Thompson, you privileged," that would offend me, because I know how hard my mom and dad worked. Even now in the job that I'm working, praise God, I have a nice house, I have a nice car. I would be offended if somebody said that I was privileged, because it would discount the fact that I've worked 2 jobs for the last 15 years. Right. I don't want you to discount my grind. But what privilege means if your default is ahead of my grind, that's a privilege.
Right.
And I'm gonna try to articulate it like this. Check this out. At my former job, I'm not there anymore. At my former job, we went through some financial hardships on the job, and we were in a hiring freeze. Along with the hiring freeze, they had to let some people go. So instead of just firing people, they gave anybody who was close within 5 years of retirement, they gave them a buyout and to buy themselves out to get to retirement. So we had a whole host of people that were leaving. Well, it left us shorthanded. We didn't have enough people to do the job, but we were in a hiring freeze. All right. You still with me?
Yeah. I've got you.
We're in a hiring freeze. Can't hire nobody.
Right.
Now, so then next thing I know, my boss comes to me and tells me that I have an intern. I was like, really? Okay. We just hired this intern. We're in a hiring freeze. We can't hire anybody. So we brought in this intern, but we need you to train him. It's like, okay. I was like, well, what school do you go to? He was like, well, I already got my master's degree. I'm out of school. But, well, how are you an intern if you ain't in school? Right. All right, well, don't worry about it. 2 months later, I get a second intern. In a hiring freeze, I get a second intern. A month after that, I get a third intern. So now me, an employee, not a manager, a regular employee, I have 3 interns that I'm training. All that got brought into our company during the hiring freeze, all 3 of them that were connected to pretty powerful people in our job. Let me show you the problem. At my job, other than me, there was only one other black male in technology, and there was only one white female, and a black female, and she was a project manager. Watch this. Not a single manager in the building was black. And all 3 of the people that are now in our company that got hired during the freeze, all of them were connected to powerful white people at our job. So the problem with that is you just hired 3 people in a hiring freeze with no open process, with no application, and that I know of with no qualification to do what you hired them for. You only hired them based on who they knew. And if the people in power in this job are all white, and most of us have circles of friends that match your face color, then how can you ever get diversity in your new hires if the pool you are fishing from ain't got nothing but catfish in? You will never catch a bass.
Exactly. Never, ever. Never, ever.
And man, it bothered me at my core. It bothered me so greatly that I went and talked to HR about it. And what I wanted them to hopefully see is that, man, if I had announced that to my corporate office, which is all about diversity, they would have had a cow.
Right.
And they was like, well, we weren't trying to be, they weren't trying to be offensive, but they also weren't deliberate about inclusion. And if your default is ahead of my grind, that's a problem.
Right. Exactly. And I heard, I can't remember who I was watching, but he explained white privilege as this. If all the white people and black people, say we got 8 white and black people, we lined up on a track and put us all at the starting line, and we had to run a 400. Right, the hardest race in the world to run for any sprinter in the world. You know, the 400 is what they call it, the man's race, because it is a serious race, a full sprint for 400 meters. Right. Here's how white privilege works. So you fire the gun, you tell all the black people you can't go yet. Bang, go. So the white people gone. They get to the 200-meter mark. All right, black people, hit it. Right. So now we're trying to catch them. Right. But that's exactly how privilege works. For 400 years, well, let me from 1619 to 1865, you told us to hold on.
Right.
You can't start the race yet. When 1776 hit and the Declaration of Independence and everybody's talking about we free, now the white people are rolling. They done hit the 200-meter mark, right? So now the black people, 1865 hits, bang, the gun goes off. We already 250 meters down. Right. And we're trying to get to this 400. How we going to stop? How we going to catch them? You know what I mean? How are we going to slow them down and catch them? We can't, right? And even if we did, even if one of us caught you, that was probably because one of y'all front tripped and fell. And then we got a shot to run past you.
Yeah, and if you think about it, in the event that one of those with the head start fall, the masses put them in the same class as the black people. Remember, now the Ku Klux Klan didn't have a problem with just black people. They said we're against niggas and spicks and po white trash. They see all of us in that same spear behind them. And so to your analogy, which I agree with, that they got a head start. But even after 1865, after the 250 meter head start, now at the 250 meter mark, you put a moat with alligators, You
Right.
put a dragon at the 100-meter mark. You put the black holes and Jim Crow. You put some llama and cattle in the middle of the track. All these things to make the way much more difficult. And then when we finally caught up, you said, well, you can't buy no land here at the finish line.
Nope. And you stuck. And then you wonder why. And then people wonder why. Well, why are they so angry? Why are they still so mad?
Right.
We mad because
so long ago. Why are you still so mad?
Listen, I've heard that question. So if slavery was 400 years ago, why are you guys still talking about it? Because technically we have still been enslaved.
Right.
We might not have the title slave anymore, but there's a lot of enslaved tactics going on in this world. There's a lot of enslaved problems going on in this world.
Yes,
and those things are just like put out there for us to eat. Like, once. So I remember my dad talking one time about, he's 82. So I remember, and he's from Mississippi, Pascagoula, Mississippi. And, I remember him talking about when he first came to Louisville, and that was like whenever it was. I remember him talking about how that black people were he was so impressed when he got here because black people were all working and all moving. And then all of a sudden, something came into the neighborhoods and something came into the black community that kind of messed everybody up and kind of slowed everybody down. For a long time, he never ever said what that was. But as I got older, I realized that was cocaine, crack, heroin, all of those wonderful things that were coming from all these different places that I know the black people that I grew up with could not bring that into this city or into this nation by themselves. Yeah. So I wonder who dropped those little sprinkles of things in our way to add to those obstacles. There are so many different things that have been put in the system, put in the community, and put in the way to make that travel to that finish line, to that 400 finish line, so much harder.
Mm-hmm. Man, listen. So let's just stop and take a breather, man. We've been going about an hour. Hey, I put 2 books in the comments that I want y'all to check out. The first book is called White Fragility by Robin D'Angelo, and the other one is How to Be an Anti-Racist by Ibram X. Kendi. Those are 2 very good books. Check them out if you get a chance. I think they'll really speak to you. They're written in modern language. 2 brilliant thinkers and really important for this fight for equality and justice and this connectedness that we can have now. We're going to answer a few questions. If you have questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And we'll answer questions. That'll be the way that we'll start to close as we're closing this down. We're going to do several of these, as many as it takes to get the word out. Because we do feel like we got a lot to cover. We ain't even scratched the surface, man.
Not even close. Not even close.
We're going to go over the history of slavery. We're going to talk about the slave trade and kind of impacts of slavery and how that got started. And then we're going to do one episode just on the importance of trying to deconstruct the mentalities that were the ill effects that happened through slavery on the mind and the esteem of Black people. Just about images and Black people not being encouraged to be mentally sound and intellectuals and just used as pieces of meat or physical, used based on their physical prowess. So if y'all have any questions, go ahead and shoot them to me. Let's see. I got one question here. And Brother Farmer, I'm going to ask you this question.
All right.
Alexandra asked, do you feel that racism or prejudice is equal among the sexes?
I feel, actually, I don't know if I would say it was equal because women get double time. Like gender, you got to throw in gender with that. You know what I mean? And and I heard a man tell me, and one of our white brothers tell me when Trump was running and he was going against Hillary, he was like, it don't matter who is going against Trump. I mean, it don't matter who's going against Hillary. I'm voting for the man, right?
Okay.
So in a lot of people's mind, women are still weak, and women don't shouldn't have a voice. You know what I mean? And that old way of thinking, that old thought process that is, I do not think it's equal. I think women kind of suffer more, and I don't know. I might throw black men suffer a lot too because they hit double standards. I don't know if I would ever call it equal, but I know both of them go through a numerous amount of situations to even get to where they want to get to.
Yeah, definitely. But I think the order has seemed to be white men, white women, black men. But all three of those other groups are far behind the first group.
Right. Yeah. You're right.
But somebody asked us, are we just going to continue to do this live? We're going to turn this into a podcast. Man, I don't know. At this point, we're just trying to talk out our pain, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And
right.
This is a therapy session that we decided to let y'all listen in on. As me and my brother just try to unpack this stuff. And also it's coming out of, I mean, people have asked, what can they do? And in my mind, your first step is trying to get education, trying to understand kind of some of the history and the things that have happened in life and how they affect us as Black people. I truly think, and Lakunta, you've been coaching for years. You've been head coach here. You worked as a teacher. I truly think because I live in white spaces on my job, and they've never had a difficulty with me or you, that they feel we're the exception. And oftentimes think that I'm less Black. They think this stuff they about to tell me ain't gonna bother me. And then when I get them all the way together, I mean, just let's be clear. I got plenty of degrees, I got an education, but listen, don't think it ain't gonna keep me from getting these lemon heads. Right?
Right.
I mean, and from that, there are many flavors, there are many levels. We're multifaceted people. There is no limit on what we are and what we can be. We can be CEOs. We can be, we can have our own lawn business. We can do anything that we want to do. There is no garden variety Black person. We got all flavors, all colors, all types. So, we're trying to bust up those myths.
Right. And I think it's also like you said, it's for us it's therapy, because I mean we do this on the phone, but for us it's a lot of therapy in it, just to get our feelings out. Like you said, I also think it's a moment that we can use to teach a lot of other people things that they probably didn't know. I guess our job as who we are in church, and our job is where we are, is to educate the masses. So if that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. If we could change some hearts and change some minds by giving them actual knowledge and facts versus just things that we make up, it is going to help anybody. And I'm always down to help anybody get a little more knowledge in them.
All right, so we got two questions that came in. To Miss Cleo Williams, thank you for your question. I'll send this. I'll send this link to the Central District so they can make this available. And Sister Vicky Bridgman asked if we're going to have other guest speakers included in this conversation. So yes, I actually have reached out to a number of people to come in and join with us. I do think that me and Lakunta have a whole lot of information, but there are certain topics that when we get to them, that we are going to bring in people. One of my dear friends, Dr. Cherie Dawson Edwards, who is a criminal justice professor at University of Louisville. One of her specialties is kind of helping us to understand criminal justice reform and the need thereof. And you hear a lot of talking points, and even some that a lot of Black people don't clearly understand about the movement to defund the police. A lot of people think that movement means, oh, it ain't gonna be no police officers no more, and that's really not what it means. And I'm gonna give her an opportunity to come and to try to educate us on what that means. It's something she's been fighting for years, and it really just talks about how we police our neighborhoods and how we keep our community safe, and how to roll back some of the in-jailing and enslaving people and move towards real social reform on a communal level. Those are possible. So yeah, Vicki, we got a number of people that we've reached out to. I've reached out to Dr. Ricky Jones, who's the director of Pan-African Studies at the University of Louisville. I want to get him on and get him to share some things. Dr. Ricky Jones, a mess, boy. So we get him loose. It'll be a fun time. So yeah, Vicki, we've talked to a few people, and as we'll just continue to develop this, we'll add people as needed. All right, man. Listen, we done held the people enough, so I'm gonna throw it to you to give any final thoughts, and then we'll talk about next steps after you give final thoughts.
Well, for me, thank you for coming up with this idea and this thought process, man. This means a lot to me to be able to do this, and I'm sure it means a lot to a lot of other people. If you guys have any questions that are following me on my feed, please send me some questions as well. If me and Damien can answer those questions, if we can't find the answer, we don't know the answer, I guarantee we'll go find the answer for you, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. But I want you guys to take away from this that we're going to touch topics that are uncomfortable. We're going to tell history that's uncomfortable. We're going to give you things that are uncomfortable, but as a society, we got to learn to live in that uncomfortable space a lot of times, and being in those uncomfortable spaces allow us to learn from one another and actually grow from one another. So I'm all for growth. I'm all for learning. And I know I'm gonna learn some things from Damien. I've been learning from him since the day I met him, so I'm gonna continue to do that. I'm gonna continue to learn, and I just want to bring you guys along on this journey that we're gonna take, and it's going to be interesting. And I can't wait to dive into the history of what we're going to do. Me and him talked about the other day, what historical things do we want to start with? If we don't start with Christopher Columbus, I don't know who else to start with, You know what I mean?
Let's be clear. If I mess around and see Christopher Columbus, I'm going to mess him up when I see him.
Yeah, he got to go. He got to go. They tore the head off his statue in another city, so he's headless. Headless horseman. But again, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that we got this opportunity to do this. I'm thankful that we are attacking this situation, and I hope people share this. I hope once we send the link out, it gets around, and not for us. You know what I mean? Just for the knowledge base of it, just for, the learning and seeing where two Black men are coming from, and where our experiences and us understanding each other, and getting others to try to understand where we are. And again, I appreciate everybody's watching. I appreciate everybody that sent comments back and forth. So final thoughts, put your seatbelt on, sit back, get ready, because we're coming.
Listen, I say this a lot, and I want to say it again. For you white brothers and sisters who are asking, how do I help during this time? These are the final thoughts that I'll share today, and I'll let you know what we're doing here in the next few days. First off, make sure that you are not just seeking not to be racist, but that you're fighting against racism. It's not enough for you just not to be. If you sit back and benefit, just remember that if I'm in a car and the person in the car goes to rob a bank, and they get back in the car and I say nothing and I ride to the next spot with them, when they end up finding the culprits who robbed the bank, they are not going to arrest the one who went into the bank and came out. They're going to arrest him or her and everybody in the car. What I'm saying and suggesting to you is, not only do I not want you robbing banks, or in this case, robbing black people of their rights, I also don't want you riding in the car silently when you see a crime against my humanity being committed. So it's more than just not being a racist. It's being about not being an anti-racist. I'm against all that stand in those spaces that hurt my brothers and sisters, that move in spaces to oppress, and I won't be a part of it. So that's my suggestion to you. And ultimately, don't be a butthole. You know, that's what I'm trying to raise my kids. Listen, I don't want my kids to be strippers or prostitutes, and I do not want my kids to be buttholes. Do not treat people poorly. Do not prejudge people. Do not write people off. Forgive people when appropriate. And forgiveness does not mean you have to continue the relationship. Forgive them and move on and do what you have to do. But just don't be nasty. Right. Don't be petty. Don't be small-minded. Think. And when you think of others, and that'll go a long way. It'll help you out. So me and Lakunta said we're gonna try to do this about every 2 days. Right. So Lakunta, you down for Saturday? Can we schedule something for Saturday?
Yes, we are good for Saturday. What time? What time is 7 o'clock?
We can do 7. 7 o'clock is a winner.
That works for me. I'm all down.
All right, man. Y'all tune back in 7 o'clock on Saturday. We'll pick this up again. And
are we gonna let them know what we're gonna touch on Saturday?
Man, we're gonna talk about this offensive word called slavery. Shock! Oh my God. Yeah, we're gonna discuss slavery, man. We're gonna talk about the slave trade. We're gonna talk about slavery in America. That slavery started in America before America was America. But
right. We seem to not know that or forget. I don't know.
Yes. You know, these black people just all of a sudden popped up and started cooking our food. We don't know where they came from.
Yeah, we have no clue how they got here. They were just here and asked, "Can I be enslaved too?"
Right. All right, everybody. I appreciate y'all joining with us and hanging with us. We're gonna try to keep all of these right at 90 minutes to an hour. We know we got a lot to unpack, and we're gonna try to do it in the best way we can. God bless you. Stay up. Love one another. Walk in love. Don't walk in hate. And if there's someone hating around you, love them enough to correct them.
Exactly.
I'll let you.
Yes, sir. Peace.